My name is Mallory Vance, and if there's one thing I've learned about family, it's that blood can bind and choke just as tightly. I was born the second child, the insurance policy, as my father liked to joke, always living in the gentle shadow of my younger brother, the golden boy. Our family was never rich, not in the old money sense, but my grandparents built something real, a quiet portfolio of property, a trust, a small lake house that seemed eternal to my childhood eyes. Now, as an adult, I understand just how fragile it all was. A week ago, my mother called. Her voice was sweet as syrup and cold as the steel inside a bank vault. She said there were a few papers to sign, just family business. What she meant was, sign away your share, Mallory. Sign so everything passes to your brother. Their words were cloaked in concern. It'll be simpler this way, less mess. You don't really need any of this, do you? I listened, said little, and when the time came, I refused. That refusal didn't go over well. Within days, a formal letter arrived, inviting me home for a family vote. They thought a conference room and a little pressure would bend me, like I was still that quiet girl in the corner. But I wasn't coming to plead. I wasn't coming to beg. When I walked into that house, I carried more than just my silence. I carried the truth. And I was ready, at last, to use it. There are some houses you never really leave, no matter how many years or miles come between. For me, the Vance family home was that kind of place. A sturdy, two-story colonial at the edge of a forgettable Midwestern town. The bricks had faded, and the trees had grown old and brittle, but everything else was preserved, as if my mother had willed time itself to halt. On the day I returned, the sky hung low and gray, pressing against the roof like a warning. I parked my car across the street and sat there for a moment, engine ticking in the cold. The house was already crowded. My brother's silver SUV was in the driveway, perfectly angled as always, like he expected to win points for neatness. I spotted Aunt Ellen's battered sedan, and Uncle Roy's work truck, too. There were voices leaking from the kitchen window, laughter, the clink of glasses, the hum of a family pretending everything was normal. I wondered who, if anyone, believed it. When I stepped through the front door, the first thing that hit me was the smell. Fresh polish, stale air, and a faint trace of lemon cookies. My mother always baked when she was nervous. She met me in the hallway, her lips painted too red, hands smooth as silk. "Mallory, sweetheart," she said, her eyes darting past me, searching for something. Approval, perhaps, or maybe just a sign I'd changed my mind. "We're so glad you made it. Come in, everyone's waiting." She didn't ask about my drive. She didn't hug me. It was a performance. Every word a careful note in a song she'd written long ago. I followed her down the hallway, my heels silent on the wood floor, taking in the gallery of family photos along the wall. In every one, my brother grinned wide, his arm draped over someone's shoulder. My face was always turned slightly away, the ghost at the edge of the frame. The living room had been staged for the meeting. The coffee table was gone, replaced by a long, folding table stacked with papers, legal pads, pens. At the head of the table sat my father, looking every bit the small-town patriarch. Silver hair perfectly combed, reading glasses perched low, eyes cool and expectant. He barely looked up when I entered. Beside him was my brother, Oliver, buttoned into a crisp blue shirt that matched his eyes. He smiled, tight, polite, almost apologetic. Uncle Roy and Aunt Ellen filled out the rest, clutching mugs of coffee and pretending to chat about the weather. No one mentioned the reason I was there, not yet. My father gestured to a chair at the foot of the table, the seat farthest from him. "Have a seat, Mallory." I sat, folding my hands in my lap. The room felt colder than I remembered. Mother sat down beside my father, smoothing her skirt. She reached for a stack of papers and slid them toward me, her smile stretching thin. "We thought it would be best to make everything clear. This way, there are no misunderstandings." Oliver leaned forward. "It's just easier, Mal. You know how complicated estates can get. If you're not interested, why not let Mom and Dad handle everything? I can manage things for the family. You're busy in the city, with your clients and all. We just want what's fair." I watched him, wondering if he even believed the words he was saying. Oliver was always the diplomat, the bridge builder. He played his role beautifully. I could almost admire it. If it hadn't been my future, he was quietly negotiating away. Uncle Roy cleared his throat. Not to meddle, kid, but this kind of thing tears families apart. Seen it myself. His wife nodded, her eyes fixed on her mug. I picked up the papers. They were exactly what I expected. An addendum to my grandparents' original will, typed up by some lawyer I didn't know. My name was still there, but the inheritance, the house, the land, the small investment portfolio, had all been rerouted to Oliver with a footnote, to avoid confusion and ensure proper management of assets. Mother spoke again, her voice syrupy and thin. It's what's best for everyone, darling. We thought you'd understand. I set the papers down. For a moment, I looked at each of them. My father's rigid posture, my mother's brittle smile, my brother's uneasy gaze. I felt the old ache, the urge to shrink, to nod and say yes, to make it easy for them. But I stayed silent. The silence stretched, uncomfortable. My mother's smile trembled, just a little. In that moment, I realized this wasn't about paperwork. It never had been. It was about roles, expectations, who was willing to accept less, and who would fight for what they were owed. I straightened my back, folded my hands on the table, and met my father's gaze head-on. So, what exactly are we voting on today? My voice was steady, colder than I intended. For the first time, a flicker of doubt crossed his face. And just like that, the meeting began. The meeting room might as well have been a stage, and I could feel every eye on me as my father began. This is just a family matter. We want to do things the right way. His voice was calm, but every syllable carried the weight of expectation. A warning, a plea, and a command, all rolled into one. My mother, ever the actress, folded her hands delicately in her lap. We all want what's best, Mallory. You know how your grandparents meant for the estate to stay together. Your brother's always been so responsible and, I cut in, my tone polite but firm, I know what the will says. I've read it more than once. A sharp silence. Oliver cleared his throat and tried to look me in the eye. Come on, Mal, no one's saying you can't visit. It's just easier if there's one person managing everything. I'll make sure you get whatever you need, whenever. That stung, more than I'd expected. The way he phrased it, like I was a child or an aging aunt needing an allowance, hit a nerve older than either of us. It wasn't the first time either. I remembered birthdays as a child, gifts handed out in front of relatives, but mine always came with an extra comment. Don't lose it this time, Mal, or let Oliver help you set it up. He'd been the golden son since he could talk. Aunt Ellen set her mug down with a clink. We all know how these things go sideways. Saw it with my own cousins. They spent years in court. No one wants that, honey. Uncle Roy nodded, scratching his chin. Don't get lawyers involved. That's all we're saying. The pressure was relentless, a current pulling me back to the girl I used to be. Quiet, eager to please, too scared to ask for anything. I'd spent most of my childhood slipping between the cracks, never quite belonging, always too much or too little. Now I looked down at the papers. Their request was simple, on the surface. Sign the addendum and step aside. No scenes, no drama. We trust you to do the right thing, Mallory. That's what my mother said. But I knew what she meant. We expect you to disappear, like always. I thought of my grandparents. My grandfather had worked 3 jobs to buy that house. My grandmother sewed curtains by hand, baked bread from scratch. They believed in fairness. Every holiday, she'd count out slices of pie to be sure everyone got the same. I wondered what she'd think now, watching her son and daughter-in-law treat her legacy as a bargaining chip. My father sighed, sliding the pen closer. You've always been smart, Mal. We know you'll make the right choice. It's not about love, it's just practical. Your brother is settled. You have your city life. There it was, the undertone that I'd never quite fit, that my choices somehow disqualified me from belonging. For a second, I saw myself as they did. the single woman in a big city, with a job they didn't understand, with no kids or partner to anchor her to the family. I met my brother's gaze. He tried to look apologetic, but there was something smug under the surface, a certainty that this would go his way, like it always had. "I won't sign," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, but steady. My mother's smile flickered, then returned. "Don't be rash, dear. Think about the family. Think about how hard your father has worked." She tried to reach for my hand, but I pulled back. "I have thought about it, a lot." The air grew heavy, thick with unsaid words. I wanted to shout, to demand why my claim was less than my brother's. But I'd learned long ago that in this house, emotion was ammunition, and I refused to give them any more. Instead, I watched the way my mother's jaw tightened, the way my father's fingers drummed on the table, the way Oliver leaned back, all easy confidence. I saw Aunt Ellen's nervous glance, Uncle Roy's forced neutrality. It was all a show, and I was the only one refusing to play her part. Finally, my father straightened. "If you can't agree, we'll put it to a vote. The family should decide." Aunt Ellen nodded, her lips pursed. "It's only fair." Uncle Roy grunted, "Majority rules." I almost laughed. Fair? There was nothing fair about being asked to relinquish what was rightfully mine, but I kept my face neutral. "Then let's vote." Mother shuffled the ballots. My father passed out pens, as if it were some church raffle. Oliver smirked, folding his arms. I wondered if he'd already decided what to buy with my share. As they prepared their little charade, I felt the pressure fade. Something inside me grew calm and cold. For the first time I realized I wasn't here to win their approval. I was here to reclaim what I deserved, whatever it took. So I sat in silence, hands folded, while they counted votes for a future they were certain was already theirs, never suspecting I'd brought my own storm. As the last ballot slid across the table, my mother's hands hovered expectantly, certain of victory. My father straightened in his chair, ready to announce the result, while Oliver leaned back, already imagining his win. I could feel every eye on me, waiting for me to give in, waiting for me to play the part they'd written. But instead, I reached into my bag and pulled out a slim manila folder. "Before anyone decides anything," I said, keeping my tone measured, "there are some details you might want to see." The room quieted. Even Oliver's smirk faded a little. I spread the documents out on the table. Property records, a copy of my grandparents' original will, and an email I'd printed out, just in case anyone doubted me. "First," I said, tapping the property papers, "the title to this house and the land was never properly transferred after Grandma and Grandpa passed. According to the county, their estate is still open. Any changes require consent from all named heirs." I looked at each face in turn. "That includes me." My mother stiffened. My father's mouth opened, then closed, as if searching for a line in a script he hadn't rehearsed. Oliver shifted, no longer sure of his seat at the center. I slid forward the copy of the will. "This document splits everything equally between the grandchildren, not just Oliver." The words hung heavy. I saw Aunt Ellen's brow furrow, Uncle Roy finally paying attention. Then I held up the email. "And finally, Mom, this is from you to the family lawyer. Convince Mallory to sign quietly. If not, find a workaround. Oliver must inherit." "I have more, if you want." My mother's face drained of color. Oliver stared at her, and for once, my father looked truly shaken. There was no anger left in my voice, just clarity. I didn't refuse out of spite. I refused because I know exactly what Grandma and Grandpa wanted, and I intend to honor them, even if I'm the only one in this room willing to. No one argued. No one called my bluff. For a moment, I almost pitied them. Almost. I pushed the stack of ballots back across the table. "You can vote all you want. The law is clear, and so am I. I won't be signing anything." The old house seemed to settle around us, the silence as sharp as shattered glass. My father managed only a whisper. "What are you going to do, Mallory?" I met his gaze. whatever it takes to protect what's rightfully mine. I gathered my things, feeling lighter than I had in years. Behind me, their voices rose, anger, confusion, and panic. But I didn't turn back. I walked out the door, the cold air stinging my face, and for the first time, I felt utterly unafraid. I barely remembered closing the front door behind me. For a long moment, I just stood on the porch, breathing in the cold, brittle air, letting the tension leave my shoulders. Inside, voices rose and fell in muffled bursts, first angry, then desperate, then suddenly quiet. I wondered if they were already arguing over next steps or just sitting in stunned silence, their illusions finally broken. As I walked to my car, I heard footsteps behind me. It was Oliver, his confidence gone, hands shoved deep in his pockets. "Mallory," he called, but there was no command in his voice now, only confusion, and something that sounded almost like fear. "You didn't have to do this. We could have figured something out." I turned to face him. For years, I would have given anything for his approval, for even a crumb of kindness. But now, looking at my brother, I saw him as he was, just another adult grasping for more, never seeing what he already had. "I did what I had to," I said, my tone steady. "Not just for me. For what's right." He hesitated, words failing him, then simply turned and went back inside, closing the door a little too hard. I got in my car, hands steady as I gripped the wheel. The old house stood behind me, its windows dark against the winter sky. No longer a place of memory, but just a structure holding the echo of old stories. On the drive back to the city, I didn't feel triumphant. The loss was real. I had left behind any hope of the family I'd wanted. But I had something new, a fierce, hard-won self-respect, and the knowledge that I could survive on my own terms. In the days that followed, the fallout was immediate. My parents called, demanding, pleading, bargaining, but I didn't answer. Uncle Roy sent a brief message. "Proud of you, kid? About time someone stood up?" Aunt Ellen said nothing, but I heard from a cousin that the family group chat was on fire. Accusations, blame, panic about lawyers and court. I started the legal process to secure my share, just as the law allowed. It was slow and it was lonely, but every form I filed, every boundary I set, felt like an act of rebuilding, not just of money, but of a life. Each night, I slept a little better, and I realized that sometimes you have to walk away from the house you grew up in to finally become the person you're meant to be. Freedom didn't look the way I imagined. It wasn't loud or cinematic. There were no epic endings, no apologies that washed everything clean. It arrived in the gentle hush of my own apartment, in the certainty that my phone could ring all night, and I wouldn't need to answer. For weeks, the legal battle over my share played out in slow, grinding steps. Letters from lawyers, updates from the courthouse, the odd message from Aunt Ellen, or once, a surprising note from Uncle Roy. "Don't back down. About time someone did." There were lonely moments. I missed the rituals that had once meant something. Christmas cookies, old family movies, the laughter of people who, for all their flaws, were still my blood. But what I didn't miss was the ache of never being enough, of shrinking to fit their comfort. Each day apart from them, I felt that ache shrink too, replaced by a quiet confidence I'd never truly known. My work took on new meaning. Clients came and went, but sometimes I recognized the look in their eyes, a mix of exhaustion and hope, the quiet wish to be seen, to protect what mattered. I found myself telling them what I wished someone had told me. "You're allowed to say no. You don't owe your silence to anyone, not even family." I never went back to the old house. In the end, it would sell and the money would come, and maybe there'd be another family photo on another wall. But I didn't need bricks and beams to feel safe. My real inheritance was something more lasting, a voice, a choice, and the peace that comes from living honestly. And in that peace, I finally understood. I was always enough, even when my family refused to see it.